Hello everyone, welcome to my first lesson on how to approach a new word in your reading. This lesson will contain a lot of examples in it and it takes up a lot of time, so if you want to skip past that, feel free. Hello, my name is Mr. Rosenthal and I'm going to briefly explain to you how to approach a new word in your reading. The process is very simple, just 3 steps basically. 1, try and figure it out. 2, whatever you can figure out, look it up. And then 3, to make sure that you know it, you need to be able to use it. I'm going to give you a couple details about each of these. Okay, so the first step in the 3-step process for approaching a new word is figure it out. By figure it out, I mean try and get the word's meaning and its part of speech possibly, just by looking at it and without having to look it up. If you have to look it up, it takes a lot of time and we want to do things as quickly as possible. So this step is really important for speed and efficiency for your reading. Really, there's 2 basic parts to this. If you're trying to figure out a word, you can basically break the word down into its parts to try and understand it better. It's word analysis. Or you can look at the words around that word, look at its context to try and figure out its meaning and or part of speech. Let's take a closer look at word analysis first. By word analysis, I mean look at its root word. Does that root word look familiar to you? Do you know, if so, what do those words mean? Maybe you can try and figure out this word, this root word, based upon other words that you've seen that you know. Affixes are the letters that we add to the beginning and ends of words, and it changes meaning in one or more ways. Prefixes are those letters that are added to the beginning of words. Suffixes are those letters that are added to the ends of words to change that meaning. If you look at the root word and the affixes, you can often figure out the meaning of the word, and that's part of speech. In that case, what you'll try and do, and you'll probably do this anyway, this is a natural thing to do as a reader, is to look at the other words around the word that you're trying to figure out. If you look at those words and you look at the sentences before and after, you can often figure it out or get very close to the meaning of the word. Okay, so we're going to go over an example of using context to try and figure out a word's meaning and part of speech. I'm using here an example from the screenplay of one of my favorite movies, A Few Good Men. I mostly want you to just see the way I'm thinking as I'm reading through this, particularly as it gets close to the target word. In this case, the target word will be fathom. So here we go. You want answers? I think I'm entitled to. You want answers? I want the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom. Now, when my mind comes across this word, fathom, and I've never seen that word before, so I immediately start thinking word analysis, as I talked about before. Is there a root word that I know here? A base word? Fathom? No. Nothing about this word seems familiar to me at all. I can't even tell it's part of speech. I don't see any suffixes here. No letters on the end of it. No letters on the beginning of it. I can try and look at the sentence. I have a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom. Maybe I substitute another word in here to try and figure out it's part of speech. Than you could possibly understand. I have a greater responsibility than you could possibly imagine. So imagine, understand, used in this way, that would be a verb. So this is a verb. That's all I can really get, and I'm guessing that it means something having to do with understand, think of, imagine, something like that. So I'm going to go back and read up to it, and then I'm going to read a little bit after it. Again, this is the context, so let's try again, read back up a little bit. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know. See, he's talking about not knowing. So maybe fathom has to do with knowing. Like I thought it was understand. It looks like that is what it means. That Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible, incomprehensible is another word that maybe you don't know when you come across it. And we could go ahead and break this word down. For example, look at the base word, or the word, part of the word that I know, comprehend. Comprehend. Maybe you know that comprehend means understand. Oh, okay, well, if it means understand, well, ible, we just went over ible. The suffix ible makes the word an adjective, a descriptive word. Okay, it also means able to. So able to understand, except for we also have in. Remember, that means not. That's a prefix that means not. So not understandable. That would be an example of using word analysis to try and figure this word out. And it goes along with the word fathom. Again, this is using context. So we have the knowing, know, incomprehensible, not understandable. So fathom, it seems to me, means something, means understand. A synonym would be understand, comprehend. Um, so going through this process is using context to try and figure out a word's meaning. That is the thought process that you should go through, something similar to that. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next step. What happens if you can't figure it out on your own, or you don't fully understand it? What